Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to Senator Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank all of you for your testimony today. So one question for you, Mr. Culbert. In that 1% that you talk about, and you mentioned in your statement that you're concerned because many of them are experiencing some type of trauma, and that may be why they're using or overly using cannabis. Could you tell us a bit more about how this House Bill C-45 might address? Can you speak more about how legalizing marijuana can help with addressing that 1% and the issues that the 1% may be dealing with?
To be completely honest, I don't think it can. I don't think it does address it, and I don't think it can address it. It creates an environment where talking about cannabis use is okay for parents, for teachers, for social workers, so on and so forth. And it's not just the attitude of just say no, it's illegal, you can't do that. What's more important, and what I'm slowly seeing and try to reinforce every time I speak publicly, is when we're looking at problematic use. And there's a whole paradigm of use from non-problematic to problematic. Okay? Problematic use of a substance is just a symptom. And so we look at that and want to dive deeper. Instead of demonizing the substance, they're innate substance, like they're not innate, but alcohol, other drugs, cannabis, you can use them without danger unless you're trying to numb some kind of a pain, unless it's an inappropriate use of that. And so let's change that dialogue, and that becomes a mental health conversation. It becomes a social conversation about how we use that. And it's absolutely crucial in all this, the role of parental modeling. And of course, this bill can do nothing about that, but parental modeling plays a huge role.
Do you
might have more time?
Yes, you do. You can get other comments from other panelists, or you can ask another question. Your choice.
Well, I don't want to stop you, so go ahead.
Rapidement. Very quickly, in terms of the malaise that exists, because this is where the question brings us, we have to act upstream. We have to work on prevention. In the bill, if we're concerned about this, we're right to say that there are mental health issues as well. I agree. But anecdotally, in the consultations we conducted in Quebec, we heard that a street worker said that if it's legal, we'll finally be able to open up and talk about it with young people. And we'll really be able to help those who have issues. And these people who use cannabis, it just makes their problem worse. So we want to be able to work on prevention and take advantage of every opportunity to do so. So this bill has to be aware of what it can do in this respect. Thank you.
More time?
Yes, you do.
I do have more time. So to the Toronto Public Health and also Public Health Agency of Toronto, this picks up on the question that Senator Almavar raised around the over-incarceration of people of African descent. And we have a fair amount, we've heard a fair amount about that. What we haven't heard about is the impact on the health of African Canadian communities. So I'm wondering if either of your organizations has looked at that, and maybe there's not, if you have evidence around that, it would be useful for us to get that from you.
Well, I think we had Toronto Public Health you wanted to ask first of all. Yes, go ahead.
So thank you very much for the question. I think a couple of points. As I tried to make clear in my remarks, we talked a little bit about how criminalization has negative impacts at the individual level, whether we're talking about stigmatization, negative impacts on employment opportunities and therefore economic status, etc. And while I did talk about those impacts at the individual level, you can well imagine when they're applied, right, when those impacts are actually felt by a large number of individuals, particularly those who are associated or are part of racialized communities, it goes from an individual level to a community level. And that, too, has negative impacts. Again, you would experience social stigmatization, negative impacts on income and employment, etc., both at the individual and the social level. So I think you're quite right that there are implications at the community level as well. And they mimic those that would be felt at the individual level.
I need to move on. Sorry.